She accidentally sent the CEO her Christmas wish, and he whispered, "Tell me your real wish." She just wanted to vent. She wrote her Christmas wish list on her phone and hit send without checking who she was sending it to. 30 seconds later, a cold shiver ran down her spine. She hadn't sent it to her friend. She had sent it to him, the CEO, the most unreachable man in the entire office, the man who never smiled and never, ever got involved with anyone. And yet, later that same night, he appeared beside her under the Christmas lights shimmering against the glass windows. He leaned in, lowered his voice, and said, "That's your public list. Now tell me, what's your real wish?" And in that moment, she realized, maybe the greatest gift wasn't something she had asked for, but someone she never imagined would answer. Before we continue, if you enjoy touching and inspiring stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Now let's get back to the story. "You sent that list to him?" The color drained from Clara Wynn's face. Her fingers trembled above the phone screen. The tiny icon at the top glared back at her like a silent judge. Delivered. Read. 9:41 a.m. And just under it, the name, Damien Hartwell, CEO. Untouchable, unsmiling, unreachable. Clara's voice was barely a whisper. "No, Mo, no, this can't be happening." Across from her, seated at the office cafe table with a coffee already going cold, her best work friend Lana slapped a hand over her mouth and stifled a laugh that quickly turned into a wheeze. "Oh my God, Clara, you sent your Christmas wish list to Damien Hartwell, the same man who fired a director last year for smiling in a budget meeting?" Clara dropped her phone onto the table like it had burned her. "I meant to send it to you," she muttered, pulling her sleeves over her hands. "I just needed to vent. It wasn't even serious. Just things I know I'll never get." Her voice trailed off as she thought of the words she had written just minutes earlier, curled in her desk chair before morning meetings began. Clara's wish list, a quiet Christmas, no pity invites. One day without pretending, "I'm okay." A reason to stay in the city, something, someone, to believe in again. The last line echoed in her ears like a bell someone had rung in the snow. "Oh, honey." Lana leaned forward, finally seeing the panic in Clara's eyes. "Wait, he replied? Did he reply?" Clara shook her head, but her stomach flipped all the same. The read receipt still sat there, silent and merciless, as if the man himself had opened her soul, nodded in silence, and moved on without blinking. "I'm going to get fired," Clara whispered, trying to steady her breath. "That was personal. That was too personal." "You think Damien Hartwell actually reads messages?" Lana raised a brow. "He probably deletes everything that isn't about contracts or mergers." But neither of them sounded convinced. Just then the cafe quieted slightly. Clara froze. The elevator doors across the open-plan floor opened with a soft ding, and out stepped Damien Hartwell, black suit, long coat, impossibly crisp shirt. The man was carved from winter itself, tall, composed, moving through the office like he belonged to another world entirely. He didn't look at her, but Clara felt a prickle run down her back, like the air had shifted the moment he stepped in. "I need to disappear," she muttered. Lana's eyes followed Damien's path toward the glass conference room. "Or," she said carefully, maybe he didn't mind," Clara scoffed. "The man is a corporate glacier. He's not going to suddenly have emotions because of a random assistant's sad little Christmas list." "Still," Lana said, eyes twinkling, "I'd pay to see what happens next." Clara spent the rest of the morning walking on a tightrope of anxiety, unable to concentrate on her work. The weight of embarrassment sat squarely in her chest. And it didn't help that Damien's office was in direct line of sight from her desk. Every time someone's phone rang, she flinched. Every time her name was called, her stomach sank. By the time noon rolled around, she hadn't touched her lunch. Instead, she sat curled over her tiny desk, scrolling endlessly through emails, half reading them, waiting for the one message she hoped wouldn't come. "Please see me." But nothing came. No email, no reprimand, Not even a polite HR note, just silence. Clara stood and grabbed her coat. "I'm going for a walk," she told Lana, voice tight. Outside, the December air bit gently at her cheeks. The snow hadn't begun to fall yet, but the clouds were heavy with the promise of it. Her coat flared slightly as she turned the corner of the building and stepped toward the Christmas market stalls set up in the courtyard. It was there she saw it, a snow globe, small, delicate, tucked between handcrafted candles and jars of cinnamon jam. Inside the glass dome, a tiny cabin glowed with golden light, nestled in a blanket of snow, a pine tree standing tall beside it. Her hand hovered above it, drawn to it for reasons she couldn't quite name. "My grandmother had one just like this," she murmured aloud. The vendor, a silver-haired woman with a gentle smile, looked up. "It's waiting for the ride home," she said softly. Clara hesitated, then stepped back. "Not mine, not this year." But as she walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that the snow globe, like her wish, had been seen. Back inside, the lights on the office Christmas tree had been turned on, soft, gold, glowing. She passed it quickly, hoping no one noticed her red cheeks from the cold. But just as she turned the corner to her desk, she stopped. On her chair, resting quietly on top of her notepad, sat something new. The snow globe, the exact same one from the market. Heart in her throat, Clara looked around. No note, no tag. She turned in slow motion toward the corridor leading to the executive offices, only to find Damien Hartwell standing there, watching her. His gaze, cold as it always had been, seemed warmer now. Just barely, he took a step forward, then another. Clara's pulse jumped. Damien stopped a few paces away. No smile, just a tilt of his head. And then he said, with a voice deeper and softer than she ever imagined, "That's your public list. Now tell me, what's your real wish?" Clara's lips parted. She stared at him and realized he had read every word. Clara didn't breathe, couldn't. Damien Hartwell stood 3 feet away, the man who barely nodded at birthdays, who didn't do small talk, who rarely looked anyone in the eyes unless they signed his checks, and yet here he was, speaking softly. Holding her gaze, his words from seconds ago still hung in the air like mist. "That's your public list. Now tell me, what's your real wish?" Clara blinked. Twice. Her heart thudded in her chest. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I didn't mean to send it." "I know." His tone was unreadable. Calm, almost curious, but his eyes, those steel-gray eyes, lingered a little too long on her face, like he was reading her again. Clara's voice came out smaller than she wanted. "It wasn't serious, just something I typed without thinking." He nodded slowly. That's what made it interesting. Her eyebrows knit. "You think sadness is interesting?" "I think honesty is rare," he replied. He didn't smile. But something in his face softened, just for a moment. A subtle shift, like snow melting at the edge of a window pane. Clara looked down at the snow globe still in her hands. She hadn't touched it yet. The cabin inside seemed to glow warmer now, as if lit by the tension between them. "You bought this?" she asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he glanced towards the Christmas tree, then back to her. "I saw you staring at it," he said. "You left without taking it. Seemed like a mistake." Clara couldn't help it. A tiny laugh escaped her lips. "You were watching me?" Damien arched a brow. "Don't flatter yourself, Miss Wynne. I happened to be walking by." A beat passed. "But yes?" She bit her lip, warmth creeping up her neck. Then, sensing the shift, he changed course. "Walk with me." "What?" He nodded toward the hallway. "The coffee in this office tastes like scorched regret." "I need real caffeine. Join me." It wasn't a question. Clara blinked. "Aren't you supposed to be in the quarterly board call?" "I was. Now I'm not." Before she could argue, he was already walking. Clara looked down at the snow globe once more, then followed. The little cafe 2 blocks from the office was tucked between a bookstore and a florist. Clara had passed it dozens of times but never stopped. It smelled like roasted hazelnuts and cinnamon when they entered, and the warmth inside instantly softened the edges of the world. The barista looked up, startled, probably not used to 6-foot-tall CEOs in expensive suits showing up unannounced. Damien ordered without hesitation, "Flat white, extra hot, no sugar." Clara hesitated at the counter, still half shocked she was here at all. Same, but with cinnamon." He nodded approvingly. "Brave." She smiled faintly. "I live dangerously." A tiny chuckle slipped from him. A chuckle. Clara nearly dropped her wallet. They took a small booth near the window. Outside, the sky had begun to spit soft flakes of snow, catching on the glass and dissolving in slow motion. Damien leaned back. For once, he didn't look like the top floor of the building. He looked like a man, tired, too tall for the chair, with the faintest shadow of 5 o'clock stubble along his jawline. Clara sipped her coffee. The cinnamon hit just right, warm, sweet, unexpected. He watched her for a second, then said, "Why those wishes?" She paused. She could lie, make it funny, say something breezy. But the snow globe was sitting between them on the table now, and the cafe's golden light made her feel safer than she had in weeks. So she told the truth. "I moved to this city 4 years ago," she said, "right after my dad passed. My mom didn't want me to stay in our hometown. Too many memories. I needed a fresh start, so I said yes to the first job I could get. Entry-level assistant," she nodded. "Worked my way up to events coordination. It's not glamorous, but I make things happen. Quietly, behind the scenes." "And you're invisible," he added. She looked up, startled. He wasn't mocking, he was observing. "Yes," she admitted. "I guess I got used to people not noticing, which is fine. Until holidays hit." He said nothing, just listened. Clara stared into her coffee. "I see other people with families, with traditions, with something to look forward to, and I pretend I don't care. But the truth is—" She hesitated. "I'm tired of pretending I don't miss things I never had." The words surprised even her. For a long second, Damien didn't respond. Then he reached for the snow globe, turning it slowly in his hand. "When I was 10, he said quietly, my father forgot Christmas entirely, sent a driver with an envelope of money on the 26th. My mother put the envelope in the fireplace, said, 'He can't buy a holiday he doesn't remember.'" Clara blinked. "You remember that?" "Perfectly." Something shifted in her chest. He wasn't ice. He was glass, clear, fragile, containing whole worlds of winter storms and a single flickering light inside. "I didn't mean to pull you into all this," she said gently. "You don't owe me anything." Damien met her eyes. "I owe myself something," he said. "Which is noticing people I should have noticed before." Their coffees were half empty now. The snow outside had thickened, softening the edges of the street. Then his phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression closing like a curtain. The CEO mask returned. "Your lunch break is almost over," he said. "Not cold, just back to business." Clara stood slowly. "Thank you for the coffee." He nodded, and for a moment she thought that was it. But just as she turned toward the door, he said behind her, "Clara?" She froze. His voice was lower now, almost unsure. "I asked what your real wish was," he said. "You never answered." She turned, heart thudding. "I don't know yet," she whispered. Damien tilted his head. "Then maybe we figure it out." When Clara arrived at work the next morning, something was different. Not in the way the office looked. The same cold marble floors. The same chrome elevators. The Christmas tree still twinkled in the lobby with its soft gold lights, and the receptionist still wore too much perfume. But something had changed. People were looking at her. Subtle glances, half whispers near the copy machine. One junior manager even stopped mid-step. squinting like he'd seen her name somewhere he couldn't place. Clara tried to ignore it. She clutched her bag tighter and headed to her desk, heart pounding, thoughts racing back to the snow globe now sitting on her bookshelf at home. She'd stared at it last night far longer than she'd admit, replaying his voice in her mind. Then maybe we figure it out. What did that even mean? Was it an invitation? A passing comment? A mistake? She wasn't sure. What she was sure of, however, was that 10 minutes after she logged into her computer, her calendar updated. Meeting request, 11:30 a.m., private strategy briefing attendees. Damien Hartwell, Clara Wynne, location, 49th floor, CEO's office. Her stomach flipped. Clara stared at the invite like it might disappear. That floor was sacred ground. No one under director level ever got called up. And certainly not for a private strategy briefing. She turned to Lana, who was biting into a cranberry muffin. I just got called up. His office. Lana nearly choked. You're going to the 49th? Alone? Did you commit treason? I think he wants me to help plan the investor gala. The Christmas Eve gala? Clara nodded. Lana lowered her muffin, eyes narrowing. Clara, no offense, but until 2 days ago, he didn't know your last name. Until I accidentally sent him my emotional breakdown in list format, Clara muttered. Lana leaned in. Girl, be careful. That man notices everything, and no one ever walks out of that office the same. The hours between the invite and the meeting passed in a strange blur. Moments of panic, then pockets of calm that didn't make sense. It was like her mind couldn't decide whether to brace or breathe. At 11:28, Clara rode the elevator up alone. The 49th floor was silent, luxurious, and almost surreal. Dark wood paneling, framed black and white cityscapes, a single long hallway that seemed designed to intimidate. Damien's assistant, a sleek, impeccably dressed woman named Elise, gestured for her to go right in. Clara knocked gently, then stepped through the large glass door, and there he was, standing by the window, suit jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled to the forearms, like he'd been up thinking all night. Clara, he said, without turning. Mr. Hartwell, she replied, a little too formally. He glanced back. Damien, when we're not in public. Her breath caught at that. He gestured to the small round table near the window, not the desk, 2 chairs. A tray with a teapot and 2 mugs, mismatched, not company china. There were also 2 slices of banana bread. You didn't eat lunch yesterday, he said. Noticing her gaze, she blinked. You remembered? I notice things now. He sat. Sit. Eat. It wasn't a command, but she obeyed it all the same. They ate in silence for a moment, the bread surprisingly warm and soft, the tea spiced with something rich and calming. Clara relaxed slightly, feeling more human. Less like a deer in headlights. Then he slid a file across the table. I want you to co-lead the Christmas Eve gala. Clara stared. I thought this was a senior event. It is, but the board doesn't understand people. You do. Her fingers tightened slightly around the mug. Why me? Damien didn't answer right away. Then he looked at her, and for the first time she saw it. Not interest, not pity, but respect. You made a list, he said, and it told me more about this company's emotional blind spots than 2 years of feedback forms. Her heart skipped. You're not invisible, he added, and I don't think you've ever been ordinary. The next few days unfolded in a strange, new rhythm. Meetings, shared notes, quick glances across the room. Clara found herself spending time on the executive floor, not just as an observer, but as a collaborator. She began noticing things too, like how Damien rubbed the back of his neck when a conversation turned emotional, or how he softened slightly every time they passed the tree in the lobby, or how he'd pause for half a second before knocking on her desk to signal a new task, as if he didn't want to surprise her. It wasn't romantic, not yet, but it was real. Until Monday morning, when everything changed again. The team meeting was full. Holiday planning, last-minute budgets, year-end panic. Clara sat near the back flipping through her notes. And that's when she walked in, tall, blazing confidence, lips red, heels louder, Miranda Knox, head of public relations. Beautiful, witty, sharp as broken glass. She was one of the few people in the company who could make Damien laugh, and she knew it. "Morning all," Miranda chirped. "Apologies for the entrance. Wardrobe emergency." Her voice dripped with charm. Then she saw Clara. "Oh," she said sweetly. "Is Clara here in strategy meetings now? Look at you moving up." It sounded like a compliment, but everyone heard the edge beneath it. Miranda had spent years building her proximity to Damien, protecting the illusion that she was the only one who truly understood him. Anyone new in his orbit, especially someone he seemed to notice, was a threat she wouldn't tolerate quietly. Clara smiled politely, just helping with the Christmas Eve gala. "Of course," Miranda said, sliding into a seat next to Damien, her seat always. "How festive." Clara looked away. She didn't belong here. She wasn't meant to be seen. And suddenly, she felt very, very visible. Too visible. The meeting moved on. Numbers, vendors, projections. Then came the question. "Damien," Miranda purred, "who's handling the opening speech?" Before he could answer, Clara felt every eye turn toward her. He looked directly at her, and then, with a calm, clear voice, said, "Clara will be opening the event. She's the reason it matters." Miranda froze. Clara's pen slipped from her hand, and suddenly the room felt too quiet. Clara didn't hear anything after he said it. "Clara will be opening the event. She's the reason it matters." The meeting kept going, voices moving on, people nodding, but Clara sat frozen in her chair, still clutching the pen that had slipped from her hand. She was the reason it mattered? A week ago. Damien Hartwell didn't know her favorite tea, her middle name, or even the sound of her laugh. Now, he'd handed her the mic. Beside him, Miranda Knox's smile never wavered, but her pen scratched aggressively against her notebook, leaving dark, angry strokes. After the meeting, Clara ducked out quickly, not wanting to make eye contact with anyone. The moment the elevator doors closed, she let out the breath she'd been holding since 9:53 a.m. Her hands were shaking. She didn't want attention, not like that. Not in front of Miranda, not when she hadn't done anything exceptional, just spoke honestly. Still, there it was again, that voice in her head whispering, "You don't belong up here." She buried herself in work that afternoon, tuning out everything, even skipped lunch, something Lana later scolded her for with a pack of almonds and a dramatic gasp. "Girl, you skipped banana bread, and you think you're functioning." Clara gave her a weak smile. It was a weird day. "You think?" Lana leaned closer. "Clara, he publicly handed you a stage. Do you know what that means in this building?" "I don't want it to mean anything." Too late. Clara's phone buzzed. She looked down. One new message. Damien Hartwell. "Come to the roof. 5 minutes. Bring your coat." She blinked. "The roof?" Lana leaned over. "Oh, that's not normal." Clara's breath fogged in the crisp December air as she stepped onto the rooftop garden, a rarely used executive space with benches, pine planters, and a string of snow-dusted fairy lights. Damien stood near the edge, hands in his coat pockets, his black overcoat blending into the gray skyline. He didn't turn when she stepped forward, but he spoke, like he felt her presence. "I shouldn't have said it like that," he said quietly. "In the meeting." Clara blinked. "I didn't say it bothered me." "You looked like you'd been pushed off a cliff." That made her laugh. A surprised, breathy laugh. Damien turned toward her finally. "You weren't wrong," she admitted. "I'm just not used to being noticed." He studied her face. "You should get used to it." She glanced away. "Not everyone thinks I belong." "Miranda?" "I didn't say her name." "You didn't have to." He stepped a little closer. You think she's threatened because I noticed you, or because you did something she wouldn't dare do?" Clara looked up. "What's that?" "You were vulnerable." He let the words sit in the silence between them. Snow had begun to fall, thin, glittering flakes swirling gently in the wind. They caught in Clara's hair, in the collar of her coat. She tucked her hands into her pockets. Then she felt it, felt something inside. In her right pocket, where she'd left only gloves that morning, her fingers brushed something round. Cold, familiar. She pulled it out, the snow globe. Her eyes widened. "Did you—" she began. Damien shook his head. "I asked Elise to leave it for you. Thought you might want it nearby today." Clara stared at it in her palm. The tiny cabin glowed softly under the glass. The tree beside it stood tall, blanketed in white. "Why do you keep giving me this?" she asked gently. "Because I'm starting to think you don't need a stage," Damien replied. "You need a home." Her eyes met his. The air between them shifted, just slightly, but enough. Later that afternoon, Clara returned to her desk, the snow globe now quietly sitting beside her keyboard. She tried to focus, but her thoughts kept drifting. To the rooftop, to the way Damien had looked at her, to the weight of his words. He thought she needed a home, not praise, not titles, but something far more personal. She wasn't sure what that meant, but the idea stayed with her like a flickering light. At 5:30, she gathered her things and stepped into the elevator, and there, waiting by the doors, was Miranda. Clara blinked. "Oh, hi." Miranda's smile was perfect. Too perfect. "Clara, long day?" "Just finishing up." Miranda's eyes sparkled, but not kindly. "Saw the gala draft notes on Damien's desk earlier. Nice work. Very real. Very emotional." Clara nodded slowly. "That's the tone we're aiming for." "Yes." "Well, the board isn't big on feelings, but I'm sure you'll charm them." It wasn't a compliment. Then Miranda leaned in. "I just wanted to give you a small tip," she whispered. Clara tensed. "Men like Damien," Miranda said sweetly, "don't fall for women who cry into keyboards. They fall for women who make them forget they need to feel." Clara stepped back. Miranda smiled wider. The elevator doors opened, and Damien stepped in. Both women froze. He looked at Clara first, noted her flushed cheeks, the tension in her posture. Then, slowly, he turned to Miranda. "Problem?" Miranda laughed lightly. "Not at all. Just giving Clara some advice." Damien's jaw tensed. His voice was ice. "From now on," he said clearly, "if Clara needs advice, she'll ask for it." It startled her, this new unguarded version of him, like he had decided overnight to stop hiding. Miranda's face didn't change, but her eyes went cold. Clara stared at him, stunned, but he didn't look away. And then, as if the moment hadn't cracked the air in half, he looked forward and said calmly, "Clara, are you free tonight?" Clara blinked. His words hung in the air between them, casual on the surface, but soaked in meaning. "Clara, are you free tonight?" Behind them, the elevator doors whispered shut. Miranda turned with a swish of her coat and walked off, her heels clicking with more force than necessary. Clara finally found her voice. "That depends. Are you asking me as my boss, or—" Damien didn't flinch. "As a man who wants to buy you dinner." Her breath caught. He'd never spoken to her like this, direct, unguarded. It felt like watching ice crack open to reveal warm water underneath. She stared at him, the CEO, the man who'd once said 4 sentences a day to her, Max, now standing in the soft glow of the hallway lights, offering something that felt nothing like business. Clara's heart gave a slow, cautious thump. I don't know what to wear for that," she murmured before she could stop herself. A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, the kind that only appeared when no one else was watching. "You're wearing it," he said. "Come as you are." She didn't expect the bookstore cafe. Tucked behind rows of holiday-lit trees and a cluster of quiet antique shops, it wasn't upscale or grand. It was warm, wooden shelves wrapped around the dining area, lined with books of poetry and old love letters. A record player in the corner hummed softly with Frank Sinatra. "I thought you might need a place that doesn't ask anything of you," Damien said, pulling out her chair. Clara sank into it slowly, unsure of what surprised her more, the location or the fact that she was sitting across from a man she once thought didn't feel. Their table was simple, a flickering candle, 2 chipped mugs of mulled wine, and a steaming shared plate of roasted vegetables. Thick soup and warm sourdough slices wrapped in cloth. "I was expecting white tablecloths and a reservation list," she admitted with a smile. He shook his head. "Too many people. Too much talking. Here the silence is part of the charm." She studied him, the way his coat had been draped neatly on the chair behind him, how his watch gleamed subtly in the candlelight. But it wasn't his usual sharpness that caught her attention now. It was the weariness in his eyes. "Do you ever let yourself rest?" she asked softly. Damien sipped his wine. "This is me resting." Clara smiled gently. "You're not very good at it." He huffed a short laugh. "Not yet." They shared the soup, spiced with rosemary and something sweet. Clara tore off a piece of bread, passed it to him without thinking, and he took it with the kind of quiet gratitude that felt intimate. It wasn't a date. And yet, it wasn't not. Halfway through the meal, Clara reached into her bag, fishing for a tissue. Her fingers brushed something hard and round. She paused. Of course. She pulled out the snow globe, then placed it quietly on the table beside the candle. Damien looked at it, then at her. "You carry it with you?" "I didn't mean to," she said truthfully, "but I guess I didn't want to leave it behind." He reached for it slowly, turned it once in his hand, then set it back, right between them. "I've thought about what you said on the roof," she murmured. He met her gaze. "That maybe I don't need a stage," Clara said. "Maybe I'm just trying to find something that feels like mine." Damien leaned forward, voice low. "You don't have to earn that. You're allowed to want more." The words settled into her like warmth. No expectations, no conditions, just someone telling her she didn't have to fight to be seen. They stayed after the plates were cleared, sipping the last of the wine. Clara caught herself watching him, not just his face, but the way he sat slightly crooked in the wooden chair, the way he pushed his sleeves up past his elbows again like the suit had always been a costume. "Why this place?" she asked softly. He looked around the room. "My mother used to bring me here, after the divorce. We couldn't afford much, but once a month she'd buy tea and read out loud to me." Clara's breath caught. He glanced down. "I haven't been back since I was 19. "And you came here tonight," she whispered. "With me?" He didn't answer with words, just reached out, carefully, respectfully, and picked up the snow globe again. He turned it just once and let the snow fall quietly over the tiny cabin. Then he looked up at her, eyes soft, voice lower than ever. "Clara?" Her heart thudded once, then again. "Yes?" He opened his mouth to speak, and a voice interrupted them. "Oh, sorry, I didn't realize this table was taken." They turned. A woman stood at the edge of the table, middle-aged, smiling apologetically, holding 2 books in her hands. "I used to sit here with my late husband. It's silly, but we met in this corner." Clara smiled gently. "It's not silly at all." Damien stood. "Take it." Clara blinked. "What?" He glanced down at her, his voice full of something she hadn't heard before. Tenderness. "We can come back another night." He turned to the woman and said with quiet dignity, "Your memories matter more." They stepped out into the cold. The snow was falling thicker now, and Clara wrapped her coat tighter as they walked along the quiet sidewalk. "You gave up our table," she said softly, half smiling. "I did," he replied. But I wasn't finished with you." She looked up. Damien stopped walking, turned to her. Snow fell around them, catching in his hair along the collar of his coat. Behind them, the bookstore lights flickered like stars trapped behind glass. He took one careful step closer. "Clara," he paused, "may I see you again tomorrow?" The snow was still falling when Clara got home. She didn't turn on the big lights, just the soft lamp by the window. It cast a golden glow over her tiny apartment. Warm, quiet, lived in. Her heels came off first, then the coat. Then she slid the snow globe onto the bookshelf like it belonged there. Because it did now. She moved slowly, tired, but full. Not just from dinner, but from the kind of conversation that left your soul feeling seen. On the stove she reheated the soup she'd made on Sunday. Carrot, ginger, something comforting. She poured it into her favorite chipped mug and sat at the table alone. But she didn't feel alone tonight. Clara pulled out her phone. No new messages. She wasn't surprised. Damien didn't strike her as the text you cute things at midnight kind of man. And honestly, she didn't want that. She wanted something slower, real, like turning the page of a book you've waited years to finish. After dinner, she stood at her bookshelf, touching the spines like old friends, and stopped on a pale blue one with a faded spine. A Winter Promise, her mother's favorite book. She opened the front cover. Inside, in her mother's warm handwriting, "Stories stay when people go. Let yours be one worth keeping." Clara swallowed hard. She hadn't read that line in years. The last Christmas they'd had together, before the hospital, before the chemo, before the silence, her mom had read that book aloud. Just the two of them, sitting on the sofa with tea and slippers, laughing at the awkward romantic lines, crying at the endings. She'd forgotten what it felt like to be held by a moment. Now, tonight, something in her felt almost safe again. Almost. Her phone buzzed. Clara jumped. One new message. Damien Hartwell. Tonight meant something. Don't let the silence after make you doubt it. Her breath caught. No emojis, no overthinking. Just the exact words she didn't know she needed. She didn't reply right away. She held the phone to her chest for a moment. Eyes closed. Then, gently, she placed it down. Next to the snow globe. The next morning, the office felt brighter, though it could have been the fresh snow dusting the windows. Clara walked in with a small smile, wearing a soft blue sweater and her mother's old pearl earrings. She didn't feel invisible. Not today. And for the first few hours, everything went quietly, until Lana appeared at her desk. "Hey," her voice dropped, "you might want to hear this." Clara frowned. "What?" Lana opened her email, turned the screen, an internal memo, forwarded, not meant for them. From Miranda Knox, subject, Christmas Gala, public image notes. We'll need to prepare PR contingency language in case the opening remarks fall flat. Clara Wynn is lovely, but inexperienced. If the room turns awkward, we pivot quickly. Possibly have a board member on standby to redirect the tone. Clara read it 3 times, her face flushed. It didn't say anything wrong. It didn't insult her. It just sliced gently, like cold air under the collar. Lana grimaced. She forgot to remove you from the forward list. Sure. Clara stared at the screen. Why does she care so much? She whispered. I'm not a threat. Lana looked at her. You didn't ask for power. Clara, that's what makes people nervous. She stepped outside during lunch to breathe. The snow had stopped, but the city still sparkled under its coat of white. She stood by the edge of the small courtyard, arms folded tight across her chest, trying to swallow the lump in her throat. She wasn't going to cry. Not over Miranda. Too early for tears, came a voice behind her. Clara turned, startled. Damien stood a few steps away, holding 2 paper cups of coffee, one of them already steaming with cinnamon. She blinked. How do you always know when to appear? He handed her the cup. You're easier to read than you think. Clara took it with both hands, grateful for the heat. "Did you see the memo?" "I did." She looked up at him. "And?" "And I trust you." He said it without ceremony, no hesitation, just that. "I trust you." She'd heard those words before in her life, but never like this. Never as something earned. Clara bit her lip. "You know she's going to try to pull the floor out from under me." "Right." Damien gave the smallest smile. "Then let her try. You'll land on your feet." Back at her desk, Clara felt steadier. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, then began to type. To Damien Hartwell. Subject, real wish. "I think I finally know what it is. My wish isn't for someone to choose me. It's to stop apologizing for being chosen. See?" She hovered her finger over send, then paused. She was still thinking, still deciding, when her email dinged with a new incoming message. But not from Damien. From Executive Assistant Elise. Subject, upcoming scheduling request per Miranda's updated notes. "You're no longer listed as speaker for the gala opening. PR chair will announce event intro. Please direct questions to Miranda." Clara stared at the screen. No explanation. No warning. Just removed. Clara didn't cry. Not in the office. Not in the elevator. Not even when she stood in her apartment later that night. Staring blankly at her bookshelf, at the snow globe sitting quietly beside her mother's old novel. But she did feel it, that tightness in her chest, the slow, sinking ache of being pushed aside without warning, without explanation. She'd been removed from the gala opening, silently, neatly, as if her words didn't matter anymore. By 7:30, Clara hadn't eaten. She stood in the kitchen, staring at a half loaf of bread and a cold can of soup. Her mind spun with what she should have said to Elise, to Miranda, to Damien, mostly to herself. Then, a knock at the door. Soft. Twice. She froze. A second passed, then she walked slowly toward it, heart already guessing. When she opened the door, Damien stood there. She didn't even have time to wonder how he'd found her address. Then again, CEOs don't search for things. They locate them. No suit. Just a dark sweater, coat half dusted with snow. "I assumed you hadn't eaten," he said. She blinked. He held up a small bag. Tomato soup, rye bread, the good kind. Clara stepped back to let him in without a word. They sat at her small table. He poured the soup into her blue ceramic bowls like it was the most normal thing in the world. Cut the toast diagonally, passed the butter without asking. No wine. No candles, just quiet, safe. Clara finally spoke. "You saw the new memo." "I did." She went through Elise this time, removed me quietly. Damien nodded once. She wants to control the tone. She doesn't trust me. He met her eyes. "I do." It wasn't romantic, it was deeper. Trust, spoken plainly. Spoken. Like a fact, not a favor. Clara tore her toast slowly. "Why didn't you stop her? I didn't know in time." She looked down. "So that's it then? I'm off the stage?" Damien paused, then said gently, "What if you took it anyway?" She looked up sharply. "I'm serious," he said. "Miranda can control the guest list. The press, the optics, but she can't control what happens in the room." "You want me to crash my own event? I want you to speak, even if it's not scheduled, even if it's not planned." Clara stared at him. "Do you know what kind of backlash that could cause?" "Yes." He leaned in slightly. "But I also know you've already said the one thing that matters." "What?" "That you're done apologizing for being chosen." Clara blinked. Her own words from the email she hadn't sent. He'd read them. Her voice dropped. "You weren't supposed to see that." "I saw it," he said, "and I believed it." They ate in silence for a while. The soup was warm, buttery, just the right amount of salty. It reminded her of simpler times. Childhood winters, wool socks, her mother humming in the kitchen. Damien looked around her apartment, at the bookshelf, the soft lighting, the quiet sense of care in every detail. "You've built something real here," he said softly. She nodded. "It's small." but it's mine." He glanced at the snow globe. "You put it by your books." "Seemed like it belonged." He turned to her. "So do you." She didn't mean to say it, but it slipped out. "I'm scared." He didn't flinch. "I know," he said. She swallowed hard. "Every time I feel like I might finally matter, someone like Miranda reminds me that I'm temporary, replaceable, decorative." Damien's jaw tightened. "Do you want to know why she's threatened?" he asked quietly. Clara looked up. "Because she's built her life on being polished, projected, bulletproof. You walked in with nothing but a cracked voice and a cinnamon latte. And you reached people." "I didn't mean to," Clara whispered. "Exactly," he said. "And that's why they remember you." Clara stood to clear the dishes. Damien moved to help, but she waved him down. "I've got it." She rinsed the bowls quietly, listening to the hum of the heater, the soft ticking of her wall clock. And for the first time all day, her body stopped shaking. When she returned to the table, Damien had picked up the snow globe again. He turned it once. Just once. And then said almost absently, "I used to think this kind of life wasn't for me." Clara sat down slowly. "What kind of life?" He met her eyes. One with warmth in it. They sat like that for a moment. No scripts, no roles, just two people. In a room that had never seen this kind of quiet closeness before. Then Damien stood. "I should go." Clara walked him to the door, fingers tucked into the sleeves of her sweater. She wasn't sure what she expected. He paused at the doorway. Snow still fell behind him in soft spirals. His eyes searched hers, not asking for anything, but hoping. Then, softly, "If I asked to see you outside of all this, would that be something you'd want?" Clara didn't speak right away. Damien stood in her doorway waiting, not impatient, not demanding, just still, like he knew how much this question meant and was willing to let it breathe. "If I asked to see you outside of all this, would that be something you'd want?" She looked down. Her fingers fidgeted with the hem of her sleeve, the fabric soft between her thumbs. "Yes," she said finally, quiet, sure. "But let me say yes in my own way." His mouth curved slightly. "All right." She stepped back inside and returned with something small, folded in her palm. She placed it in his hand without explanation. He opened it. A single peppermint from the bottom of her coat pocket, wrapped in tissue. Damien looked up, confused for half a second. Then she smiled. "It's from last Christmas," she said. "I never used it. I kept it as a reminder that even if things feel bitter, sweet is still possible." He held the peppermint like it was something rare. "I'll see you tomorrow," she said, softer this time. He nodded, closed his hand around the candy, and stepped into the snow. The next morning, Clara woke with a strange kind of steadiness in her chest. She brewed her tea slower, dressed slower, didn't rush through her makeup. She wore her red wine sweater, the same one from the day she sent the accidental message. But this time, it wasn't hiding anything. It was hers. At the office, things were in motion. The gala was just 4 days away. Clara spent the morning reviewing last-minute logistics, then headed to the executive floor with her folder in hand. She passed Elise, who gave her a curious glance, part sympathy, part warning. When Clara stepped into the conference room, Miranda was already there, flawless as always. She was speaking to 2 board members, laughing at something Clara hadn't heard. Then she saw her. "Clara, so glad you could make it," Miranda said, her tone full of syrup and edges. "You're just in time to review the centerpiece layout. We've adjusted some of the elements to match the updated theme." Clara blinked. "I wasn't told about a theme change." Miranda smiled. "Oh, that's my fault. I've been moving so fast I must have forgotten to loop you in." The board members exchanged polite glances. Clara felt it, the tiny shift, the suggestion that she wasn't keeping up. Miranda turned back to the table. "Anyway, we'll be adding a ribbon motif to symbolize unity across departments. It's visual, digestible, on brand." Clara stepped forward. "And emotionally hollow." Miranda paused. The room went still. Clara didn't flinch. "I'm sorry," she said, "but I think guests want more than digestible. They want something that feels true, especially at the end of this year." One of the board members nodded slowly. "She has a point," Miranda smiled through her teeth. "Of course. That's why Clara's been so helpful behind the scenes." Clara met her gaze. Helpful, not essential. It was a message wrapped in charm and meant to be heard by everyone. Back at her desk, Clara stared at her keyboard, hands hovering. She wanted to scream, or cry, or write something brilliant and piercing that would finally stop the undercutting. Instead, she opened her drawer and saw the snow globe sitting there, tucked next to her mother's old sticky notes, the tiny cabin. The tree beside it, still standing. She took a breath, and then she started to type. At lunch, Lana dropped into the chair beside her, balancing a too-big sandwich and a ginger soda. "You're officially a topic now," she said between bites. "Apparently half the office is rooting for you, the other half thinks you're sleeping with him." Clara rolled her eyes. "Great, but guess who left a whole string of passive-aggressive comments in the gala doc? Starts with M, ends in Iranda? Bingo." Lana pulled out her phone and flipped it toward Clara. A new memo. Gala seating draft. At the top, 2 names. Opening remarks, Clara Wynne, Damien Hartwell approved. Clara blinked. "But I was removed," Lana grinned. "Seems like someone changed his mind." She scrolled to the bottom. There it was. Final sign-off. D. Hartwell. A slow smile tugged at Clara's lips. That afternoon, she was called to Damien's office. She stepped inside, finding him not behind the desk, but near the window, holding something. He turned when he heard her. "I wanted to return something," he said. In his hand was the peppermint, but it was no longer wrapped in tissue. It was inside a tiny glass ornament, clear, spherical, tied with a red ribbon. "I had Elise call in a favor from the art team," he said quietly. "Thought it deserved more than a coat pocket." Clara stared at it, at the tiny red and white swirl, suspended in glass like a captured memory. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It's yours," he said, "but I'd like you to keep it somewhere visible." "Why?" "Because you gave it away, and that's what brave people do." He handed her the ornament. Their fingers brushed, and for a second the air shifted. Stillness, warmth. The kind of pause that means something's about to change. Then, before Clara could speak, Damien looked away. "I have a meeting," he said. "But would you join me after work tomorrow? There's somewhere I want to take you." Clara's heart jumped. "Of course," he nodded. She turned to leave, but just before she stepped out, he said her name. "Clara." She turned back. He hesitated, then quietly, "There's something I want to tell you before the gala. Something I haven't told anyone in years." The next evening, Clara stood outside the entrance to a quiet chapel tucked between office towers and ivy-covered stone. The city moved around her, cars, lights, people on their way to holiday parties, but everything slowed when Damien stepped beside her. He wasn't wearing a suit tonight, just a dark gray coat and that soft wool scarf she hadn't seen before, the kind of small, warm thing that didn't fit the Damien Hartwell the office knew. "Why here?" Clara asked softly. He nodded toward the chapel doors. "I come here every year, on this night." Clara followed him inside. The chapel was empty, not in use anymore, he explained. Closed for renovations long ago, but still open to quiet visitors. The stained glass windows were cracked at the corners, and one of the pews had a broken leg. Still, it was peaceful. Golden light from the street lamps spilled through dusty panes, turning the air into amber. He led her to a seat near the back. Clara sat beside him, waiting, and finally, after a long silence, he spoke. "When I was 13, I wrote a letter to my father asking him to come home for Christmas." Her heart paused. "I'd spent the whole afternoon working on it, even tried to use better handwriting. I folded it carefully and left it on the side table near his study." His eyes didn't leave the front of the chapel. He never read it. Or if he did, he never said anything. He flew to Singapore that week, sent a silver watch in the mail. Clara swallowed, barely breathing. My mother was exhausted, still hosting, still smiling, still holding the house together. I remember watching her pour wine at dinner while the chair beside her stayed empty. He finally looked at her, and that's when I decided I would never be the one waiting, never the one hoping someone would come back. Clara's voice was small. And you didn't. I built a life that didn't need anyone. He gave a bitter smile. But then you sent me a wish list, one that wasn't meant for me, and it undid everything I thought I'd sealed off. Clara's eyes stung, not because it was sad, but because it was true, raw, quiet truth, the kind that didn't demand pity, only presence. She reached out slowly and placed her hand on his, not gripping, not pulling, just being there. He looked down at it, then, slowly, turned his hand and laced his fingers through hers. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. Outside, they stood under the streetlight near the chapel steps. Clara turned toward him, still holding his hand. "Thank you for telling me." Damien's jaw flexed like he wanted to say more, but didn't know how. So instead, he pulled something from his coat pocket. It was a small card, pale blue. Clara opened it. Inside, "Some things don't melt. I hope I'm one of them. D." Her breath caught. "I didn't know if I should write that," he said softly. "But you gave me the snow, the cabin, the light." Clara smiled, warm, real, unshaken. "I kept it because it reminded me that even frozen things can hold warmth." And then they stood still a few inches apart, his face lowered slightly toward hers, not too close, but enough that the cold between them felt like a line they might cross. Her eyes flicked to his mouth for the briefest moment. And that's when her phone buzzed. She flinched. The spell broke. Back at her apartment, Clara opened the message. "Lana, again. Lana, you need to see this. Now. Miranda just released the final press schedule. And there's a problem." Clara clicked the link. Company Press Bulletin, December Gala Schedule Update. Opening address by Executive Leadership, Miranda Knox, Damien Hartwell. Opening remarks from Key Employee Representative, TBD, TBD. After everything. Her name had been removed, again, even after Damien's approval. She checked the time. 9:41 p.m. She dialed. He picked up on the second ring. "Clara, I just saw the update." A long pause. "I didn't sign off on that," he said, voice hard now. "She waited until I was off-grid." Clara's throat tightened. "It's happening again." "No, not this time." "She won't stop, Damien." "No," he said quietly. "But I will." The next morning, the office buzzed with gala final prep. Clara walked in wearing a sleek black turtleneck and wide-leg trousers, simple, dignified, quietly strong. She passed by a group of interns whispering near the coffee machine, but this time, she didn't look down. Her desk had a small silver envelope sitting on top. No name. She opened it. Inside was a card, identical to the snow globe's design. A tiny gold foil cabin etched with stars. No message. But on the back, in writing, she recognized, "Speak, even if they try to close the room." Her heart clenched. He hadn't forgotten. He was choosing her. Again. But just as she tucked the card away, Elise approached. "Clara, Miranda's asked to see you. Conference room 2. Now." Clara stood, walked down the hallway, and opened the door. Miranda sat at the table, alone, sipping tea. She smiled like she had all the time in the world. "Clara, let's talk. Woman to woman." Miranda's smile didn't waver. She sat like she owned the table, the chair, the air itself. A perfect silk blouse, a perfect glass of tea. Everything about her said control. Clara stood just inside the door of conference room 2, steady. She didn't speak first. Miranda did. "It's not personal, Clara. You were lovely for the early stages, but this is a major event. Damien needs someone polished beside him. Not, warm." Clara blinked slowly. "Is that why my name disappeared from the program? Twice?" Miranda tilted her head. "It wasn't a deliberate erasure, just a redirect." "Redirect." Clara repeated the word like it tasted bitter. "Look," Miranda said, setting her cup down, "you've made an impression, but impressions don't last. Not in this world. You want advice? Take the compliment and fade gracefully. Don't embarrass him or yourself by making this a fight." The words landed softly, but they were sharp underneath. Clara stared at her for a long moment. Then she stepped forward. Not angry, not shaken, just clear. "You're right," Clara said. "I'm not polished. I'm not perfect." Miranda blinked, caught off guard by the agreement. "But the truth is," Clara continued, "you've been polished so long you've forgotten how people feel. I may not impress the board, but I've spent years watching people, knowing when they're tired, noticing who brings tissues to meetings and who stays late, even when no one thanks them." She paused. "You decorate the space. I know the people inside it." The room went quiet. Miranda sat still. Clara turned to leave, voice calm as she walked away. "I won't fight you, Miranda. I don't need to. The room will remember me, whether I speak or not." And with that, she closed the door behind her. The Grand Marquette Hotel sparkled like a snow globe come to life. Golden light shimmered across marble floors, crystal snowflakes hung from the ceiling, and soft instrumental carols echoed off the stone columns. The staff moved in a blur, final lighting checks, orchestra tuning, waiters placing the first round of champagne trays. Clara stood at the edge of the ballroom in a long midnight blue gown. It wasn't showy, but it flowed when she walked, and the sleeves brushed her wrists like a whisper. Her mother's snowflake pendant gleamed at her collarbone. Lana appeared at her side with wide eyes. "Clara, you look like you belong on the cover of a holiday novel." Clara laughed quietly. "I'm trying not to sweat through the silk." "You got this," Lana said. "Just remember, breathe. And if you need to throw wine at someone, I'll be holding one in each hand." Clara stepped through the crowd, nodding politely at guests. A few surprised board members, several curious VPs, and a cluster of colleagues who gave her a quiet thumbs up from behind the buffet table. But she was looking for him, and then she saw him. Across the ballroom, under the chandelier, Damien stood in a black tailored tuxedo, and for a moment everything else blurred. He hadn't seen her yet. He was speaking to someone, nodding polite, but then his eyes lifted, found hers, and he stopped. No smile, no nod, just that steady gaze, like she'd silenced a room he didn't know was loud. Then, before either of them could move, Miranda stepped into frame. Her arm slid around Damien's, too naturally. She leaned in, whispered something. He turned slightly, distracted, and just like that, the thread between him and Clara snapped. Someone nearby clinked a glass. "Speech time," Lana whispered behind her. "You ready?" Clara wasn't sure. The ballroom dimmed slightly. Spotlights moved to the main stage. A hush rippled through the crowd. Miranda took the microphone first, radiant, poised. She welcomed the guests, thanked the sponsors, and made jokes that earned polite laughter. Then, "Now, please welcome our CEO, Damien Hartwell." He stepped forward. The crowd hushed again. Clara watched from the side of the room, heart thudding. "Thank you, Miranda, and thank you all for being here. I've given many speeches over the years, but tonight, I'd like to do something different." A murmur moved through the room. "I'd like to hand the opening to someone who's reminded us what this season and this company is really about." He looked toward Clara. "Clara Wynn, would you join me?" The entire room turned. Eyes found her, some surprised, some skeptical. But Lana's voice whispered in her ear, "This is your room now?" Clara stepped forward, walked the entire stretch of the ballroom, not quickly, not slowly, just with dignity. When she reached the stage, Damien handed her the mic, his hand brushing hers. He leaned in, close enough to feel. "I was never going to let her win," he whispered, then stepped back. Clara stood in the spotlight. The snowflake pendant glittered against her skin. Her hands weren't shaking, her voice wasn't weak. "Good evening. When I started here 4 years ago, I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a title. I barely had winter boots that didn't leak." Gentle laughter rippled. "But I learned quickly that this place runs not just on strategy, but on quiet kindness, on the people who answer emails at 10 p.m., the ones who keep peppermint in their drawers for someone else's bad day, the ones who remember." Her eyes swept the room. "This season my wish wasn't for gifts or titles. It was for something simple, to belong." A pause. "Tonight I do. And if you ever feel unseen, look around. Someone is noticing, even quietly. Applause, not roaring, not dramatic, but real. From the corners, from the back, from the heart of the room." And Clara felt it. Afterward she stepped off the stage. Light-headed, breath-catching, Damien was waiting. His hand brushed the small of her back. Brief, but enough to steady her. "You made the room feel, Clara." She looked up at him. But before she could speak, Miranda appeared beside them, her smile perfect. "Well done, Clara," she said, very heartfelt. "Now, Damien, the press table has requested a photo with just executive staff." Clara started to step aside, but Damien didn't move. He reached for Clara's hand and said, clearly, publicly, "She stays." The flashbulbs popped like winter stars. Damien stood beside Clara, one hand at her back, the other holding his usual composed expression as the press angled for better shots. Miranda lingered a few feet away, still smiling, but the shine had shifted. She looked poised, yes, but suddenly not centered, not essential. Because every time the cameras clicked, they weren't just capturing a CEO. They were capturing who he'd chosen to stand beside him. And Clara? She stood tall, still in her midnight blue dress, still wearing her mother's snowflake pendant, still glowing with something money couldn't replicate. Quiet confidence. After the photos, the ballroom blurred into music and movement. But Clara couldn't focus on any of it. Not the applause that still rang in her ears, not the whispers from executives she'd once greeted only by email, not even Lana giving her a double thumbs up from behind the dessert table. All she could feel was Damien's hand still resting gently at the small of her back, guiding her, protecting her, staying close without caging her. They walked toward the quiet hallway near the coat room, away from the noise. Clara finally turned to him, her voice soft but steady. "Thank you." He met her gaze. "For what?" "For not stepping in to save me, for letting me do it, and still being there." He nodded, voice low. "You never needed saving. You just needed someone who wouldn't leave." They paused beneath the arched hallway light, warm and golden, like the snow globe's cabin brought to life. Damien took a slow breath. "Do you know why I gave you the snow globe that day?" She shook her head. "Because you looked at it like it remembered something you'd forgotten." Clara smiled gently. "I did forget what it felt like to be chosen without having to perform for it." He stepped closer, his voice lowered, just for her. "I read your list again, Clara. The last line stayed with me." She closed her eyes. Something, someone, to believe in again. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the glass ornament, the one holding the peppermint she'd given him. But now, tied to it was a folded piece of paper. He handed it to her. Clara unfolded it slowly. It was a new list. D. Hartwell. Christmas wish, to stop pretending to be chosen back. A reason to stay, someone to believe in again. Tears welled in her eyes, not dramatic ones, just full ones, quiet, whole. She looked up at him. "Is this real?" Damien stepped in, closer than he ever had. His hand found hers, not rushed, Not hungry, just home. This is the realest thing I've ever wanted, she smiled, tearful, breathless, steady. Me too. And when he kissed her, it wasn't a fireworks kiss. It wasn't the kind of kiss that makes people gasp. It was the kind that ends waiting, that melts old silences, that makes a heart believe in coming back. They stood together for a long moment, forehead to forehead. He whispered, "Just for her. Merry Christmas, Clara. Merry Christmas, Damien." But even as they stood there, her hand still wrapped around his, Damien didn't let go. Instead, he gently reached into the inside pocket of his coat again and pulled out a smaller box, a velvet one. He looked almost nervous, as if he knew this was fast, but also knew he had never been more certain of anything. No crowd, no lights, just them. "I didn't plan to do this tonight," he said quietly. "But I can't imagine going into a new year without you knowing exactly what I want." He opened the box. A ring, simple, elegant, and warm, not like her. "Clara Wynne, will you marry me?" Her breath caught, but not in shock, in something deeper. Peace, certainty. "Yes," she whispered, and then again. Firmer, "Yes." He smiled, the kind of smile that made the corners of his eyes soften. "Thank you," he murmured, and kissed her hand. They didn't go back to the ballroom. They didn't need to. In that quiet hallway, beneath golden light and soft echoes of distant music, the future had already begun. Sometimes all it takes is one wrong message to send your heart in the right direction. Sometimes your Christmas wish doesn't come wrapped in a box. It comes in the form of someone who sees what the world tried to overlook. And sometimes, just sometimes, love isn't loud. It's steady, gentle. Chosen, and it stays. The end. Now let me ask you, what would you put on your real wish list? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to know. And while you're here, like if it made you smile. Rate this story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Be honest. Subscribe if you want more stories like this one. Until next time, my friend, see you in the next story.